Hello and welcome back. I'm Sandy with STR Jumpstart, and I want to continue our conversation today about AI. If you didn't see the first video, please do check out the channel and take a look at it. We talked about how guests were going to find their vacation homes in the future. Some are already doing it now using AI. They may not just go search like they used to, and how even the online platforms are already using AI in lots of ways to help guests find the best fit. So that's important for you to know. Today, though, we're more focused on operations, how AI can be used in your business right now. Most conversations about AI and short-term rentals are pretty simplistic these days. They're focused on automation. People talk about automated guest messages, automated price adjustments, automated review responses. And while all of that can be really helpful, most of it isn't even really artificial intelligence. It's structured programming. If a guest books, you send a message that does all of this. If it's 2 days before you check in, you send another message that's a little bit different. That's great. It's workflow automation though. It's efficient and I use it, but it's not transformative and it's not AI. So people talk about things sometimes in a little bit blurred ways these days. Companies understandably love to say that they're using AI. It sounds modern, it sounds forward thinking, and I genuinely do love talking about AI. But what I care much more about is this, like, how am I actually using it inside my business right now? And is it actually saving me time? And more importantly, is it saving me money in any way? In ways that make me a better operator, that's what I've got to figure out. In the last video, again, I talked a lot about how AI is changing it from the guest perspective, how they're going to find properties. That was the front of the business. In this one, I really want to focus more on the back room. Again, the operational side. That's the part that we have to deal with every single day. And I want to make sure that we're using these tools to the best way that we know how. Let's walk through where AI is already showing up in our software, where it's genuinely useful, where it's a little overhyped, and then how thoughtful owners can use it without losing control of their strategy. What STR softwares are actually doing with AI today? Let's start there. Let's start with the tools that many of us are already using, like Hospitable, PriceLabs, Hostfully, Guesties, things like that. I'll tell you what we've been able to figure out from research. All of them are using some form of machine learning or AI-assisted processes. I mean, aren't we all? But they're not all doing the same thing. And that's great for you. You might be able to find the tool that does it the way you want it done right now. Take Hospitable, for example. The most obvious AI layer there is in the messaging system. It can draft responses based on context, summarize guest messages. It has some history of what you have in the property by what you've programmed in, suggested replies. That's natural language processing. It's analyzing patterns in communications. It generates human-like text. That's real AI, and I think it's really helpful. I use it all the time. In fact, it just makes me sound nicer sometimes. However, the scheduled messages that most of us rely on, check-in instructions, checkout reminders, review prompts, are not AI. Those are rules, rule-based workflows. They've been around a long time, but most of the platforms do that really well. Now, let's look at PriceLabs. PriceLabs is something a little bit more behind the curtain for me, but what I know is that they're using predictive modeling to analyze historical demand, competitor pricing, booking paces, market level data. It's using algorithms to suggest nightly rates based on probability modeling. So that's really sophisticated. It's more sophisticated than regular automation. It's certainly more sophisticated than I could do. It's machine learning applied to pricing, but even there, you're setting the strategy, you're setting your base price, you're setting your minimums and your maximum thresholds, and then you're defining whether you want to prioritize your occupancy or your rate with different triggers that you can pull. The software takes all of that data and then it optimizes inside the box that you build. So that's a powerful partnership, but it's still a partnership. You've got to be there pulling all the right levers to make it work right. Hostfully and Guesty are incorporating AI more slowly and more quietly, mostly in areas like reporting summaries, task prioritization, data organization. Some are experimenting with AI-generated operational insights. That would be cool. I want to see that. But again, those tools operate inside structured systems, so none of them are running your business for you every day. They're helping you to process information faster, though. Here's a real example of what I did this morning with AI. This is concrete. I actually did it. I had this idea when I woke up, and it was really fun to go through. I actually do this all the time. Every year about February, I panic. I'm right in the middle of ski season, which is key for some of my properties, but I'm still a way out from beach season. And there's always this bit of a lull, a void feeling right around into late February or March, where I get really concerned that somehow my business is just going to fall apart any second. I'm just never going to get a booking again. And what in the world is going on? Why do I have nothing going on for this year? It's kind of funny how my mind always works this way. I can see the pattern every year now. So I like to take a look to ground myself, what I have booked right now for the entire year. And then last year on this same day, what did I already have booked for that year? That's pacing, and that's what helps settle me down, is if I can look at that and say, okay, I'm right about where I was last year. Spoiler alert, I'm way ahead of where I was last year, so I don't know why my brain can't get that right, but I wanted to look at this in some detail. So for one of my properties, I was a little more concerned than the others. Traditionally, in the past, this process would have involved exporting all of the reports from my PMS, which is hospitable, cleaning the data in Excel, aligning the dates, adjusting for differences in booking windows, putting everything all together. It would have taken me a while, and then built that comparison by scratch. If I'm honest, that would have taken me at least 2 hours to do it right. And then I still would have only had that answer. Instead, I exported the raw data, all the data that I had from my entire PMS, and I dropped it into AI. And I said, hey, compare pacing year over year. I really told it very little. I wanted it to identify any major differences, flag any anomalies. It was a long thinking process. It took about 2 minutes. It gave me an entire comparison showing occupancy shifts, revenue pacing, differences, and one large outlier booking that was distorting the perception. It came up with these big questions in my data, and it started poking me on things. I loved that, actually. I was able to explain those data points and why they made sense. For example, I had one very long snowbird rental that skewed a lot of numbers because it checked in late December, which can really mess things up in a beach property. None of this eliminated my thinking, but it eliminated all of the busy work. It really allowed me to focus on just interpreting the data rather than the formatting or making sure I had it right. Once it sent it all through, I was able to see, okay, that makes sense. I did a couple of just manual back checks. Does that still make sense? And then I could use it to do all these meaningful projections, comparisons between properties. And it even came up with some great paths forward for me to do marketing to fill some of those gaps that we had. But overall, I was 40% ahead of pacing from last year, so it was great news. Huge amount of work that in my old life in oil and gas would have taken us a week, but today I had it done before my second cup of coffee. And don't you like how I took credit for that? I had it done. I didn't really do much. The AI tool did most of the work. But this is where AI becomes genuinely valuable in our business. Not replacing decisions, but accelerating analysis. It just really helps us do things faster. So let's talk a little bit more about where it could be more useful for you. I think there are 3 big areas where AI is already making a meaningful difference in my life and hopefully yours. The first we just talked about, data interpretation. The other thing I had chat looked at this morning for me was my reviews. All of them, every word, for years worth of reviews. Most of us have access to far more data than we meaningfully use. We can see ADRs, we can see occupancy, we can see booking windows, and channel mix is really important. Cancellation rates, and then when are those cancellations happening? Review scores, seasonal trends. If you like data, you've got so much data that you probably don't know what to do with it all. And if we have an idea now of something we'd like to know in the back of our minds, we can actually do that thing for very little money and very little cost with these great AI tools. AI is very good at looking across multiple variables, identifying patterns, even in reviews. It can tell you that your booking window, for example, has shortened in a particular month in a particular market compared to last year. And that might be useful information to you. It might just soften you for next year of what you can expect. It can identify that weekend occupancy is really strong, but midweek is getting worse and worse in a particular market. It can tell you what's going on. It can surface some correlations that are difficult to see manually. Sometimes it can compare markets really well too. Second is scenario modeling. I think that is really important to use AI for. If one of your markets is dropping 10% or your average daily rate declines by $20, you can model that instantly instead of making emotional decisions when a slow month hits. Let's run a structured what-if scenario with AI and ask it to look at the impact over a year or over 5 years, or rather than just manually thinking about hundreds of reviews and what could happen, you can feed those reviews into AI and ask it to identify those recurring themes, subtle complaints, strengths you may not have even recognized. All of this can really help you make the right decisions about a property, what to do, whether to keep it, whether to sell it, if it's drifting away from your vision. You can go in and make those right adjustments. Finally, AI has a huge place in the softwares that we're using every day, and that's something to pay attention to. Be sure that you know what's happening behind the curtain. Every bit of software that I actively pick for my properties from now on will use AI. I want companies that are forward thinking, on the cutting edge. I want them to be helping me get ahead of the curve. I want my properties to be the first ones that AI recommends, and I really work hard on that. One thing to always keep in mind is knowing how that AI is being used is really important. You should have a good handle on all of this. All applications have one thing in common. They require good data and clear inputs, good instructions. AI does not magically improve messy operations. It magnifies what you give it. It's going to make it worse if you don't know what you're putting in. So it's really important to know what AI cannot do. As long as you know that and are clear about the limitations, I think it could be used in some amazing ways. AI cannot fix a property that was underwritten poorly. It cannot rescue a market that is oversaturated. It cannot create demand where demand does not exist. But what it can do is expose those issues earlier. And that's immensely valuable. You can go in and make those adjustments on your own. You can do something about the data that you have. I think it's a healthy development for the industry. Now let's imagine the future. This is one of my very favorite things to do. What could that near future look like? How could we be using this? How might we see it being used in our tools going forward? Right now, most of us log into multiple dashboards to understand our business. We get our pricing in one place, our performance in another, our accounting in another, and our reviews somewhere else. AI has the potential to maybe layer across those systems in the near future. Can you imagine a scenario where you ask a single interface, which of my properties is underperforming relative to market? And it might be able to pull your data from your PMS, your pricing tool, your accounting system, and any external market data, and then give you a synthesized answer. I'm ready for that. I want that to happen right now instead of having to really think all of this through. I think it'll happen. That doesn't require eliminating current tools overnight. It's going to require some integration, some interpretation. But over time, some of this middle layer reporting software may become redundant. Some dashboards may consolidate. Software products that are very simple, task doers type software might go away or might be less expensive if AI can do a lot of the work. But strategic oversight is remaining human. You're still going to have the power here, right? You can still define your goals. You still define your risk tolerance and your long-term vision. If you are building or managing short-term rentals today, the most practical steps are not about chasing every new AI feature or dreaming about the future necessarily, but they are about preparing your business so that AI can actually help you. And that means keeping clean financial records, tracking real expenses, not estimates, understanding your booking patterns, maintaining consistent naming and structure across all of your systems. Keep your data as clean as possible and ensure that your data exports are usable and accurate by keeping your data clean. When your foundation is organized, AI becomes leverage. When it's disorganized, it's just going to be noise. You can often tell who's using it wisely by listening to the naysayers in the group. You heard that here first. Keep your data clean and be ready for what's next. I've been excited, obviously, to talk to you about all of this today, and I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us in STR Jumpstart, and I will see you soon.